Welcome again to Record West Virginia. I'm your host, Cody Napper. Every region across every continent has stories of cryptic creatures unknown to science. America alone has the Jersey Devil, the skunk ape of Florida, and dozens of other unexplained beasts that roam the remote parts of the country. But one of the most famous made itself known to the world right here in Point Pleasant, West Virginia. Today, we take a closer look at the mysterious Mothman.
When the sun rose on the small Ohio River town of Point Pleasant, West Virginia, on November 16th of 1966, it was just a normal day. But as residents sat down for their morning coffees and picked up their morning newspapers, that all changed. Splashed across the front page was an article about two young couples seeing a giant flying creature as big as a man. For the next 13 months, the Mothman, as it would later become known, terrorized Point Pleasant and the surrounding area.
On November 14th, there were several guys digging a grave in Clendenin, West Virginia, who claimed they saw a flying brown figure go over top of their heads into a tree. This really wasn't reported until after the initial sightings here in Point Pleasant, which was November 15th. On November 15th, 1966, here in Point Pleasant, West Virginia, there were two young couples out riding around late that evening up in the T&T area, which is north of Point Pleasant. That's an old ammunition factory from World War II. They were just up there riding around about 11 o'clock. They claimed that they came down the road up there in the T&T area and saw what they thought was a man standing in the middle of the road. Linda Scarberry was one of those eyewitnesses, and she said as they got closer to it, she said she realized that it was more than just a man. She said it had two red eyes about the size of baseballs. And she said as they got closer and the headlights hit it, the eyes became more prominent. And she said as they got real close to it, then she said it had wings that came out from behind its back. She estimated those as about 10 to 12 feet wide. She said it was gray in color. And when they got right up on it, she said it took off and ran towards one of the vacant buildings there in the T&T area. Very awkwardly, she said it hopped through the grass. So as they headed back into town and hit on Route 62, coming towards town, she said they noticed it again, standing in a field by a billboard. As they turned onto Route 62, she said the wings came out, went down, and she said it went straight up into the air. And she said that's when it came over top of their car. She said they were doing about standard speed limit, but she noticed it above the car. That's when they got really scared. So they hit the gas, headed into town. Said they were doing about 90, 95 miles an hour, and it stayed right over top of the car the whole time. Then it veered off into a cornfield as they got into town. They stopped at a local restaurant called Tiny's Drive-In, told the owner, whose name was Gary Northup, he called the sheriff's department because he saw how scared they were. They were afraid really to go to the police because they didn't want to be made fun of or anything.
While the story of Roger Scarberry and Steve Mallett may have put the local townspeople on notice, it was the sighting of Merle Partridge, sometimes referred to as Newell Partridge, in Salem, West Virginia, a town north of Point Pleasant, that provided what has become the most definitive description of the Mothman. In a November 18th article from the Point Pleasant Register, Partridge described the creature as having glowing red eyes and alleged that Bandit, his loyal German shepherd that had suddenly disappeared, must have been carried off by the winged being.
There was a man named Noel Partridge who lived in Salem, West Virginia, and on November 14th, he, late at night, his family was watching TV, had a bunch of kids, and they were all watching the TV show, and he said the TV started making a loud, whirring, wind-up sound, and the screen exploded in the floor. All the glass went everywhere, and he said his kids, freaked out. He said he looked out the back window and saw what looked to him like reflecting lights. Well, the more and more people started reporting the Mothman, or the big bird, as a lot of people called it here locally, people started getting a little concerned. They didn't know what it was. They would have search parties out in the TNT area, people armed with rifles and guns and who knows what. It was almost like a hunt for Frankenstein. People were out to take a shot at it. They wanted to know if they could shoot at it and things like that. It got to be a safety issue because there's so many people up there. But people couldn't explain what it was, and it was very elusive.
As sightings mounted, locals began to search for answers and explanations for what the aerial giant could be. Perhaps the most plausible theory came from Dr. Robert L. Smith, an associate professor of wildlife biology at West Virginia University. In December of 1966, he told the Register newspaper that he believed the sightings all fit misidentifications of a sandhill crane, a large bird with a nearly 8-foot wingspan and a patch of red skin on their crown around their eyes. For others, the explanation didn't lie in animal science, but in something else entirely. From the curse of the dead Shawnee chief, to extraterrestrial UFO theories, to other supernatural speculations, the Mothman remained a mystery. But to many, one thing was for certain. Whatever the creature was, it was not a good omen.
Well, there was a lot of different opinion as to what this thing really was. Some people thought it was of a spiritual or religious nature, that it was, of biblical proportions or whatever. There were other people that thought it was a creature, a cryptozoological creature that had never been discovered yet. Some people had a theory that it was a big bird that got into some of the waste in the TNT area. Linda and the others, they said it wasn't a sandhill crane. It wasn't a bird. It looked like a man to them. In later years, you had people who, wrote books. John Keel's book, for example, talked about the Mothman being a harbinger of doom and warning people of impending danger and things like that. Over the years, Mothman has moved into pop culture, motion pictures, TV shows, documentaries, and the theories have just kind of ran wild. So whether or not he was here to warn people of danger, I don't think that can ever really be explained either.
No one saw the Mothman in Point Pleasant after December 15th, 1967. On that day, during the 5 o'clock rush hour, a loud gunshot-like noise was heard throughout town. It was the sound of the old Silver Bridge that connected the West Virginia city to Gallipolis, Ohio, collapsing. In less than 20 seconds, the entire length of the bridge folded like a deck of cards into the frigid waters of the Ohio River, taking with it the lives of 46 people. An investigation into the disaster revealed that a flaw in the bridge's design left it unable to support the weight of modern vehicles and made a collapse inevitable. But to some, the catastrophe of the Silver Bridge was exactly the tragedy the Mothman sightings were warning of.
Well, on December 15th, 1967, which ironically is 13 months to the day of the first sighting of Mothman here in Point Pleasant, the 40-year-old Silver Bridge collapsed, killed 46 people. It was the worst bridge disaster in U.S. history. The reality is the bridge was 40 years old, it was in bad shape, and it had really not been inspected or anything. So, that's why the bridge fell.
When was the first indication you had that everything was all wrong?
Well, I came to myself after, I imagine it was after the truck came to rest on the shore there, on the ground. Someone was trying to get me out. That's all I can remember.
Ever have an accident like this or anything like this before?
Not this serious, no. This is the worst I've seen.
Sightings of the Mothman have since been attributed to other disasters, such as the Chernobyl explosion in 1986, another bridge collapse in Minnesota in 2007, and even the 2009 swine flu epidemic. Is the Mothman some sort of harbinger of doom? Or are these sightings of birds and other known creatures exaggerated into something more sinister by the human imagination? We'll let you decide that for yourself in the comments below. But one thing is for sure, the Mothman stands as one of the most important pieces of modern folklore in all of West Virginia. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like, subscribe. Until next time.